When you've been in VR as long as I have, which is now over 8 years, it's not often a VR title genuinely surprises me. It's even more rare when it's the same game that does it more than twice. But that's exactly what Arken Age has done. Not only is Arken Age an absolutely stunning game visually, both on PSVR2 and PCVR, it also has great gameplay, tons of things to do, and a sense of presence that makes being in VR feel really special. Arken Age has some excellent physical interactions which massively adds to immersion, and it helps you truly embody the character. Everything in this game world has weight, and you the player have a full body. With elbow joints, I'm pleased to report, don't bend the wrong way. Larger weapons have physical kickback, and the combat can be very rewarding, and sometimes it's a really good challenge. But before I get too carried away sharing the positives, not everything in the 8 to 10 hours it's taken me to beat Arken Age has been spectacular, but thankfully these not so spectacular things are possibly soon to be changed thanks to some feedback and potential updates. And before I get into the negatives, this game has been made by 4 developers. In no way will this affect the review of the game, but as you're going to see, it makes everything we're about to discuss even more amazing. For the last few weeks I've been in one-to-one conversation with the developers, because I felt some pretty critical things were needed to be addressed in my review version of the game, and because I have no idea when these changes will happen, I will share my full thoughts on all of this today, and I've also been given access to more of an updated build on PCVR to show you what's to come in the future. But for now, let's get into the full review. So the most critical feedback was regarding a lack of a player map. Throughout Arken Age there is teleporters which also act as save points, and it's at these teleporters you can look at your map and your objectives amongst other things, but there is no way of knowing which way you're facing sometimes and where to go next. It sounds pretty unexciting, but the reason I felt this was critical to players of Arken Age is because even though the game is absolutely beautiful, it can also look very samey, especially when you're in tunnels or underground, and if for some reason you have to take a break, or maybe you have to wait to play again for a couple of days due to work, you'll most likely load back in with no idea which way to go and what to do next, which can lead to some frustration, hence the reason I also suggested a objective marker. I'm pleased to say the developers have agreed with these suggestions and are trying their best to get these 2 features in the game, and right now you can see these features working on PC. As you can see, there is now a map on the player's tablet, and above it is an objective marker. Now the good thing is these can be turned off by selecting hints on or off, and the only way the objective marker will work is when you grab the tablet, meaning if you want to explore freely and work out naturally where to go, you can. But for those of you who just want to keep progressing, I think this is quite an important update. You could then possibly do more exploring on the second run, which is exactly what I've done on the PC version for this review. Arken Age also has a new game plus mode, which allows you to keep all your weapons and your modifications for the second playthrough, and I'll speak more on the weapon mods in a moment. Now the second negative thing about Arken Age is the mid-level bosses. These encounters should have been a massive highlight of the game, because after all the killing of the standard guys you'll be doing, you'll be no doubt thirsty for a real challenge, and these huge enemies, when you come across them, look really impressive, but in reality the actual battle is pretty unimaginative. Instead of weakening progressional stages of showing damage, these guys have just instead been given massive invisible health bars and are simply bullet sponges, and because of this these battles end up being more of an up close dance around a tree or dodging missiles from a distance and firing what feels like hundreds of shots, and ultimately when you win they feel pretty boring. These mid-level boss battles don't really feel in line with the rest of the game. I was expecting to rip off parts of the armor or see the boss downed in stages, but unfortunately that's not the case right now. They come off as more annoying and just something you have to get past to keep progressing, which is a shame. Again though, the developers and I have been back and forth on this subject about what to do, and currently their knee-jerk reaction is to simply lower the health of the bosses, which I feel isn't the right answer that we're looking for, or what the rest of the game deserves. But they are thinking about it, and I'm excited to see what happens next with these encounters. Then there's the rest of the game, which is a lot of combat, climbing, exploration and swimming, and I would say exclusively in that order, and it all feels very rewarding. Those of you looking for a game to really sink your teeth into, you'll definitely find it here in Arken Age. The combat is unpredictable, and this is mostly down to excellent physics. As the game progresses in difficulty, these encounters also increased in difficulty. At the start of the game I could easily just run up to them and run my sword right through them, but as time went on they get more armor and it's almost impossible to get the one stab kill, which is great. The enemy's combat actions are also varied enough for me not to to get bored. From a distance they will shoot you, throw grenades, or use magic vines to pin you to the ground. And once they get up close, they will reveal a sword and a shield. They can also jump at you from afar, from above, or kamikaze you, which if you get caught by the blast will leave your health bar hanging by a thread, unless you click the right stick quick enough to activate the fast backwards dodge. It's this approach to combat that I feel will make Arken Age a very different experience from player to player, versus what we normally get in VR, and that's just more enemies on the screen. When I started Arken Age, I was obsessed with the melee combat, slicing heads off, running my blade through their chests and holding their bodies up to the sunlight. It just feels so empowering. I also like how the enemies can be left or right handed, and the ragdoll physics sometimes work in your favour. They could be running at you and simply trip up on a tree stump, or hit each other by accident. It's pretty impressive stuff for a team of only 4 developers. Now it's time to talk about the weapons, which at first seemed more of a hassle to use, until I unlocked more blueprints to use with my Arcanite infused guns. As these weapons get more powerful, I started using them more often and mostly for long range encounters. You can also use the guns to parry attacks, reminding you how physically solid everything is. At the beginning of this review I mentioned there is lots to do, and this is due to the amount of experimentation and exploration which I really enjoyed. In every biome, or chapter if you will, there is tons of things to keep you distracted from your main objectives, and stops you rushing through to get to the end of the game. There's 130 green triangles known as relics, which you'll find scattered throughout your adventure. Some of these are incredibly well hidden, and a real joy to find. The idea of collecting these is to unlock 3 relic towers in the Nara Sanctuary, which is basically the last surviving camp of your race, and they each give you one piece of the Bio Reaper gun for each tower you unlock. The developer also told me this might be the best weapon in the game, and that's why I'm trying to get it in my second playthrough on PC. Throughout Arken Age there's also some dead aliens which have been imprisoned using Nara helmets. If you break the helmets you'll free their souls and you'll be rewarded with plus 5% karma. They also hold in their hand a decent amount of in-game currency, and if you steal this currency you get negative 5% karma. If you get 100% good karma you get the Ritual Dagger, which you can add to your sword hilt. I'm not sure what you get for negative karma, as I like to be the good guy in my games. Regarding the weapon blueprints, completing a set of 3 of the same name grants you extra bonus stats, such as more damage as an example, and this for me was a huge focus of mine throughout my playthrough. In some games unlockables don't tend to mean too much, but so far in my experience these weapon mods and the blueprints have been brilliant and fun to use. The swimming in Arken Age is absolutely stunning too, and throughout the game it's just got so many beautiful moments and great music. Very rarely in a VR game do I think, wow, this is so cool, but this actually happened quite a lot while playing Arken Age. The climbing is done by 2 picks that mechanically appear at the flick of a wrist, and they feel so satisfying to use, especially against an enemy. That is until they get a bit tougher later on in the game. In regards to VR comfort, Arken Age can be played comfortably seated, and on PSVR2, I'm pleased to say the haptics have been put to great use, and the adaptive triggers feel fantastic. And the developer has even included a graphics mode, which offers 90Hz native and 120Hz reprojected, which offers a higher resolution. Personally, I prefer the performance mode, but if you're not that sensitive to reprojection, I would definitely check out the quality mode, especially if you have a PS5 Pro. Now to summarise Arken Age, it's a very impressive game which I've enjoyed reviewing, and it's absolutely staggering to think only 4 people made this. There are some parts of the game that, as I said earlier, let the game down, but I can't help but forgive these because what we've been left with ticks so many boxes for me. Great graphics, great music, great sound effects, brilliant physical combat, realistic physical interactions, and so much to do. Arken Age absolutely gets a buy recommendation from me, and I hope the updates we discussed earlier happen soon. And considering Arken Age has been released so early in 2025, I can already see this becoming some players' game of the year. As always, I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you for any likes and anyone who subscribes to my VR content, and I'll see you all on the next one.